Salut! I have here a list of about 10 movies which have marked me in some way. 10 French movies. When you think French movies, you probably think Amélie or The Fifth Element, movies like that, or maybe some classics like Breathless or Rules of the Game. But I've compiled this list of 10 French movies here based sort of on the ones which I found really amazing, but at the same time I reflected and I thought, well, these movies are not that much talked about, and this is a random list. They're not grouped by year or by anything like that, so just a few movies. And I'll start with the movie from 2004, Secret Agents, Agent Secret, and the movie stars Vincent Cassel and Monica Bellucci. At the time they were this celebrity couple, popular European actors, and this is a fairly tense espionage thriller, and I remember that movie kind of left me with a sense of paranoia and made me wary of ever messing with like the French Secret Service or anything, because the way they're portrayed in the movie is just, they're so ruthless, and there isn't that much action in this film, and I don't think it made such a huge splash outside of France. But somehow it stuck with me because it had that sober and at the same time impactful kind of style. So Secret Agents from 2004, fairly mainstream film, so not super hard to find, with two famous actors. I think this movie really deserves a bit more exposure. I think it's a well-made movie, Secret Agents from 2004. And now we jump to 1984, and this is a really low-budget little gem, pretty much a homemade movie made, I think, on Super 8, and it's called Augraph, or it's also known as Augraph the Mad Mutilator. The director's credit is N.G. Mount, and I think the real name is Norbert Moutier, and this guy ran a rental store in Paris. I think the director died maybe a couple of years ago, and he did 2 or 3 underground movies which he specifically self-distributed through his little rental store, through his little video shop in Paris. And Augraph is a bit like those German gore movies. It's inspired by American slashers about like a mad killer in the woods, and the director himself plays the lead, this crazy maniac. Really crazy homemade movie with some strange sloppy gore effects, and there is a cameo from Howard Vernon, the amazing multi-talented Howard Vernon. Augraph the Mad Mutilator from 1984. Check it out. The music is really wild in the film. The music is pretty good. Another movie I thought I'd bring up is from 1928. So this is the oldest movie on my list. It's a black and white film. This movie I discovered during the lockdown because it was published for free by the French Cinematheque, so for a while you could just watch it on their online page, on their web page. That was pretty cool. It's about 1 hour long, if I remember correctly, and it's just really poetic with some beautiful atmosphere. It's I think this movie is pretty easy to find on YouTube because the copyright of things ran out, so if you find La Chute de la Maison Usher, it's called, something like that in French, 1928, from Jean Epstein. Really, really nice. If you fancy like a retro film evening with some long forgotten classic silent movie, this one is creepy and atmospheric. I can totally recommend it, and it's not too long either. Another movie I thought I'd champion is from Louis Buñuel. And the movie is from 1972. It's a kind of a co-production, but I think the majority of money came from France, so this is the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie. Lovely film. It's a bit long, but once you get into its rhythm, it's got some wild, strange, creative, offbeat moments there. I think the director really kind of was allowed to project himself onto the screen through his kind of subconscious visions and things. So the film has some really arty moments, but it feels authentic. It feels like it's heartfelt movie, even though it's completely bizarre, and it's basically a chain of situations which keep repeating. We have like a small cast of characters in this country house, and they keep delivering bizarre dialogues. I don't know how to describe this movie. It's an art film, and pretty amazing. So that's the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie. Amazing cast as well. Fernando Rey is in it, who was the villain in the Friedkin movie, French Connection. Another movie which I absolutely had to bring up is from, I think it's 2001, that's Brotherhood of the Wolf. That was like a smash hit in France, and it did really well in Europe. I don't know whether it was well received in the US. I don't know if it made it across the Atlantic, but in Europe that was like a significant French movie. It did really well. The director went on to make the movie Silent Hill later. And it's got martial arts. It's a period movie, so there is the costumes. I think it's the 18th century. It's set in this rural France, and they're hunting this kind of monster. So it's got some creature feature elements, atmospheric period settings, and some gore, and quite a few martial arts moments. So it's a wild mixture from the director of Crying Freeman, another cult movie. Can totally recommend it if you've never seen Brotherhood of the Wolf. A nice movie, really nice movie. Another film I really wanted to share with you, it's a musical. I had to put at least one French musical in the list. I think this movie is getting a little bit forgotten, and the lead actress is Anna Karina, a Jean-Luc Godard movie from 1961. A Woman is a Woman. It's a very low budget musical. It cost like $100,000 to make back in the early 60s. One of Godard's earlier features, when he wasn't as ponderous, when he wasn't as self-righteous yet, so he was just making entertaining movies. And the cast is great. Anna Karina is great. It's a real colorful film in terms of how it's framed, the lovely Technicolor shades, you know, of the backgrounds. Everything is so bright. I mean, it's a feast for the eyes, the film, even though it's not like an epic, lavish film, but it looks fantastic for what it is. A Woman is a Woman, a clever, funny musical with some romantic and also some cynical jokes in it. It's a cool movie, and it's a very accessible Jean-Luc Godard film. A Woman is a Woman. Check it out if you don't know it. It used to be famous, but I think it's been kind of overlooked in recent years. One of the most famous French horror movies is undoubtedly Eyes Without a Face from Georges Franju. And this director later made another film which I really love, and it's called Shadow Man in English, and the French title is Noces Rouges, like Red Nights. And it's a kind of a super villain movie. It's a bit like Fantomas. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fantomas things. And it's in color, and I think it was meant to be like a TV series, and then they cut it together to make like a feature film. And the interesting thing is it's set in Paris, and it's about this super villain known as kind of Shadow Man, and he wears this elaborate mask and disguises so he can pass himself off as other people, kind of like Fantomas. So it's like Georges Franju making his Fantomas film with very low budget. So the cool thing, it's some of it is grotesque because obviously the money was restricted, but at the same time it has that charm of those kind of adventure movies which you don't get them anymore these days. Those were kind of low-tech movies, but they had a lot of heart, and it's a bit like some certain Jess Franco films where they have more imagination than money to pull it off. So it's a bit rare that there aren't really good quality copies available of this movie. I know there are some dodgy DVDs around. You can check it out. It's called Shadow Man. It was like a co-production with West Germany, so the villain from Goldfinger is in it, like the German actor Gerd Fröbe is in it. And I really enjoyed it. It was made actually like partially in Yugoslavia. They shot the interiors in Yugoslavia and then the exteriors in France. So it has that interesting style to it. So how many movies are that now? Am I nearing 10 now? Well, I'm running out of movies here. So just one more, I guess. That's all. That's all I can. That's all I can muster for now. a French comedy, you have to have at least one French comedy on the list. And as a kid, I used to watch a lot of French movies, a lot of them. It's the one nation that's, I think they make amazing movies. They really do, including, I think, a lot of French popular films are amazing. Not just their art movies, but just the more general audience stuff. I think they really know how to approach movies. At least they used to know how to make movies. And this comedy I want to bring up is from 1974, and it stars the French comedy action icon Jean-Paul Belmondo, and it's a movie called Le Magnifique. And I know humor doesn't travel, and I have no idea if you're not French. I mean, Jesus, neither am I. But I just find that movie so hilarious and clever. It's a co-production with Italy, so you actually get a couple of Italian actors in supporting part in it. But it's a comedy about this guy who writes pulp novels. So he's an author, and in his fantasies, he's the superhero kind of James Bond-esque, irresistible kind of guy who just fights and sleeps with girls and drives expensive cars and, you know, gets in all sorts of trouble. So there is that great contrast in the movie between this kind of loser, kind of desperately lonely guy writing these cheap paperback novels, and then his alter ego, his fantasy superhero kind of reincarnation. And that movie is just really, really hilarious. I find it hilarious because I dig Italian comedies, I dig French comedies, I can also watch British comedies. I'm not so partial, you know, I cannot say, oh, this national humor doesn't work. I think even some Swedish movies are hilarious, like Songs from Second Floor. I think it's a pretty funny movie. So it's not for everyone, I don't think. I think if you hate the kind of grimacing and that kind of continental joke, you might hate Le Magnifique. But I just think it's a real gem, and one of the more accessible movies, also from Jean-Paul Belmondo, who had a massive career in France. And I've saved this movie for last because I discovered it fairly recently, no more than a couple of years ago, and it seriously moved me because I don't know, I reacted to the story so much on many levels. There is this black and white 1995 French movie called La Haine, which is a kind of a well-respected ghetto film about those guys on the outskirts of Paris and their clashes with police. But the movie I'm talking about is a bit early. It's a kind of precursor to La Haine. It's a kind of it deals with the same problems, but the characters in the movie, the heroes, are even younger. They're like school kids. And I'm talking about the movie called Sound and Fury. And it's, the title was obviously a reference to Shakespeare, but it's not really got that much Shakespeare in it. It's called De Bruit et de Fureur in French. And the director is Jean-Claude Brissot. He did some controversial movies later, better known movies in his career, but this was one of his early ones. And the movie stars the guy who played Maigret in the French TV series. And it's about this boy, and he lives in this kind of rundown council estate block of flats somewhere on the outskirts of Paris. I forget the name of the area. The film has very few shots, so every shot is, you know, the director holds every frame for quite a long time, and there are some beautiful compositions, and just the desolation and this kind of forlorn aspect of that area when he portrays those tower blocks where all those families live. And it's just something that struck me as extremely authentic, even though the story is poetic and the story is, it has a lot of artistry to it and creative freedoms and room for self-expression. At the same time, the film also had the documentary edge, which really touched me. So this movie is, it's an upsetting film, it's a hard-hitting movie, so it's a bit like La Haine. It shows the mercilessness and the hopelessness of the younger generation of being sort of denied a future, really. So you could sum it up like that. But I think this movie, Sound and Fury, has a great amount of creativity to it. So it's a low-budget film, but it has a wicked black sense of humor, really, really black. And it also really puts the finger on some of the issues which we have in the society today. So I think that movie hasn't lost any of its impact. I've seen this movie maybe 2 or 3 times and it works every time for me, and it's a downbeat film, but it also feels right. I think the director has put his finger on some kind of truth in it, and which is why I highly recommend you check this movie out if you can find it. If you like this video, if you made it this far in the video, why don't you let me know by hitting the like button? So this helps me work out what kind of content I can focus on making for the future. Thanks a lot and talk to you next time. See you next time.